Another year. Hey, do you ever get this really keen sense of how you're going to die?
I try not to think about it, because I know, actually.
You know?
Yeah, it was a fairgrounds gypsy fortune teller.
I asked how my Christmas was going to be. She said, never mind about that. Let me tell you what's really important.
The election, I said, and she just bit her lips. Soz.
No election's going to go your way in your lifetime. Great.
It's just like the clown said.
I really feel like I'll at some point be hit by a car or a bus or something, because
good.
Quite often I get to the other side of the road and just think, wow, I did not participate enough in that process. I maybe gave the go-ahead, but the bulk of that work was done by really inexperienced lower management types.
There's a lot of people faking it till they make it, which isn't the right way of applying yourself to that process.
Which isn't the right way of getting me across the road.
I tend to be on my phone, and I think years of being a driver in the past have conditioned me to not look at the phone when I get to the curb.
Oh,
but
good.
It's such a snap movement of removing my phone to pay attention to traffic that it looks like it was just pure coincidence that I looked at from my phone at the moment that a car came around the corner.
It's
so I like to
natural.
give a nice professional look to say, like, no, I know what I'm fucking doing. But then I've shit myself, so it's really hard to explain your way out of that one.
For me, it's genuinely a surprise every time. It's, didn't die.
Here I am.
Great.
Other side of the road.
I guess I live to try and do this another day. Hello and welcome to One Good Thing, the podcast that enjoys exactly 10 films every year. No more than necessary. I'm Paul Sold.
I'm film number 11.
Today we shall be discussing 2018. What a year that was.
Yeah.
The Beast from the East brought Britain to a standstill. Harry and Meghan got married, bringing Britain to a standstill. 12 boys and a man got rescued from a Thai cave by a gang of paedophiles, I heard from this guy. Stephen Hawking died, Burt Reynolds died, and women in Saudi Arabia were given the right to drive cars. A fucking terrible year by all accounts.
It all balances out, doesn't it?
Yeah, 2019 will be the year where Burt Reynolds comes back to life and everything's going to be fine.
And they give him a driver's license.
They give him the license they had previously given to the women of Saudi Arabia.
They had one license between them. Can I drive today?
Sorry, Bert's got it. Bert's reclaimed it. Films are alright though, so we're going to do our customary April Reflect, which is distinct from our January Deflect, our February Perspex, and our May Suplex.
Fuck.
Whoa!
April Fool's Day genuflect. You do it in front of an enemy, and then when they say, "Oh, it's alright, mate, I forgive you," you headbutt them in the nads.
Every April
you
Fool's
win.
Day.
April Fool's Day. What? It's a thing.
It's a new thing I've tried. Check out my
Every
business
year.
card, and you've tucked it gently into the fly at the point when you punched him.
Oh, he's a
It's like
magician. Twist.
Oh, he's a genius.
Hospital, please.
So, we're going to do our top tens. That was a weird tense. Let's try that again. We're going to do our top tens. Perfect. Talk about the highest grossing film of the year. Get some answers from the OG team. Call it a night, probably.
Yeah, probably. Have a big old wank.
You're busy.
Yeah.
Customary post-podcast wank that our listeners usually join us in.
Unknowingly.
Oh my god, he's right! Says... I didn't know we all did it. You see, that's why you guys need to form more of a community.
Yeah, 2018, missed opportunities.
Guys, 2020, I want to see OGT wanking parties all over Britain and Australia. Now.
You've still got at least 7 months.
So get a WhatsApp group going.
Get a meet up.
I dread to think of what the picture will be on the group.
It's just me. It has to be me, because if it was you, then they'd be wanking all the time.
Could save.
See what? There's a compliment.
So let's get into our top 10 films of the year. Usual rules apply. Descending order from 10, and if an item is duplicated between lists, whoever placed it higher on their list shall be the one to talk about it. Although that is just one this year, compared to 2016 when we had 13 films between us.
Jesus, that's ridiculous. Amateurs.
I know. Well, you can't say the Tories haven't changed anything. There's more films per person than there ever has been.
A lot of them are casual hours films.
Under Labour, you'll get the state allocated film each.
And it was always Ken Loach.
About how brilliant it is now. He's changed. Okay, Paul.
Yes.
What's the 10th best film that you've seen that can in any sense be considered a film of 2018? considered a film or of 2018?
Alfonso Cuarón's Oscar-winning tableau of a family broken up by an absent father and pieced back together with the help of the maid Cleo, who learns that she is pregnant by an absentee father. That's right, it's The Prestige.
Damn, I was ready and waiting with a Spanglish joke, but now that you've done a Prestige one, I think I'll just leave it here.
¿Qué haces? Ya dime.
No puedo, estoy muerta. Oye, me gusta estar muerta.
Cleo, played by Yalitza Aparicio, she gives a nuanced and natural performance, not even with the qualifier for a first-time actor. It's nuanced and natural, full stop. This is the best of a group of very well-observed performances from the family Cleo works for, and it makes the course of events depicted within the film way more relatable. The film itself is semi-autobiographical and set against the political tumult of Mexico's 1970s, makes Roma an epic in the proper sense of the word, both personal and global. Some of the major personal moments in the film happen during the Corpus Christi massacre, and we see the seeds sown for this around the same time Cleo is trying to get her baby daddy to take root and take responsibility. The micro and macro converge, and the film does try to instill the sense of these being intertwined. And it works. The time that passes feels like decades, when really it's the accumulated experiences of our central characters. We have incredible scenes all throughout of family and community get-togethers that bring to mind The Godfather and Deer Hunter, and the sweeping storytelling and cinematography of Lawrence of Arabia and Fanny and Alexander. And yet we see so much of this through the eyes of a maid, so there are conversations and information she's just not privy to. It's a wonderful juxtaposition, it's a great balance struck, and every achievement feels totally earned because you were right there with her. Oh yeah, the directing's pretty great too. Black and white for that good texture money, and making the most of a quality director, cinematographer, and editor here. They're called Alfonso Cuarón.
Fuck yeah.
Adam Goff also edited.
Oh, hate that guy.
Fuck him. Yeah. My favourite moment would be a scene that begins with the camera following a lizard along the ground. It's travelling with a speed that for some reason feels unnatural in this black and white movie. It's a tiny detail in the middle of a grand story. I love it. It's a lovely bit of cinema, and its capturing is a statement of belief in the personal.
I really love the way that he brings the sensibilities that he's had in his big blockbusters to just domestic scenes, and yet domestic scenes, but also this is a very ordinary life being lived in extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah.
Like, it's not everyday life for me that I see literally hundreds of martial artists practicing in unison. That's once a year at most. In Unison, which is a place near my house. You don't go there.
You don't go there and remember it, at least.
Welcome to Unison. Please dispense personal identifications
for confiscation
and destruction. What was that last bit? Nothing.
I've forgotten already. No, it's a proper epic in the old-fashioned sense of the word. I really love what it achieves on a personal level, as well as saying something politically and culturally as well.
Yeah. My number 10 is If Beale Street Could Talk.
You ready for this?
I've never been more ready for anything in my whole life. You know I love you, no matter what happens.
I'm yours in your mind, and that's it. You and me all the time.
Tish Rivers and Fonnie Hunt are very young, black, in love, and living in New York, in reverse order of importance. They're not married, but they just got pregnant. This isn't really a problem for Tish and Fonnie. The real problem is that Fonnie is in jail. He's been arrested for a crime he didn't commit by a cop he had the misfortune of running into, earning his ire for no other real reason than his skin color. The family hunt for a solution, but the odds and the system are somewhat stacked against Fonnie and his family. So the film isn't linear. From the beginning until the end, Fonnie is trapped in prison and enjoying his life beforehand. These scenes are concurrent to each other. It's all about Tish coming to terms with the journey that she has been on to where she is and how that's going to affect her future. It's filmed in that beautiful, dreamy way that is director Barry Jenkins' signature. The moments of intimacy and freedom are just so gorgeous, and the scenes of repression so claustrophobic that I remember leaving the cinema feeling really grateful for my life and the world around me, but also sort of in horror of how easily it can all be taken away from you. It's a film about loss. and Fonny's absence from the lives of the people who love him is palpable. There are amazing performances all around, especially Kiki Lane and Stephen James as the leads, but I particularly found myself drawn to Tish's father, played by Coleman Domingo. He's such a lovely and caring father figure who seems so jovial but practical. He's impotent in his inability to save his daughter's husband, but he's just got this really keen sense of how to help when he can. He's just one of so many well-drawn characters that just form the background of this drama, which definitely belongs to Tish. In terms of favourite scene, the scene where an old friend of Fonny's comes to his apartment and confides in him, how he's scared of the police now, having recently been released from 2 years jail time on a crime he didn't commit, scares the living shit out of me and always leaves me breathless. Yeah. It's horrifying, that moment. But this isn't a movie that is solely spent in the misery of repression. It's also a powerful film about life and the beauty of it. So I'm going to go with the scene where Tish initially tells her family about the pregnancy. It's good. Really well written, really brilliantly acted. It's a moment of real warmth that just makes the cold reality of oppression so much harder to accept.
Yeah, and I love the scene immediately following when they invite Fonny's family around. Yeah. And the family just comes together to stick up for her. It's so satisfying. There's some horrible moments in there.
Really. Yeah, it's really tense, a lot of it. And the mother and sisters of Fonny are really, really awful people. Yeah. But there's just that. I love the scene where they decide to invite them. It's just like, get him over here. And he calls them up and is like, what are you doing right now? It's just it's so believable.
Dad's not great either.
I love it. Oh, no, actually thinking about it.
Not a great setup.
Dad's got some issues.
It has those just very precise, intimate shots that make Barry Jenkins, that stand out in Barry Jenkins movies. And every time it happened, I had to take a step back and just appreciate how awesome they were.
I didn't see the last 20 minutes of the film. I stepped out of the house.
Love is what brought you here. And if you trusted love this far, don't panic now. Trust it all the way.
Just remember, be home soon.
This is my number 11, and I think Roma was your number 11.
Yes.
It's so hard for me to decide which one to go in my number 10. They're both fantastic films.
They are. Okay, you're number 9.
It's Paul's surprise horror entry of 2018, A Quiet Place.
Woohoo!
I know! Directed by and starring John Krasinski of American Office fame and the Jack Ryan series currently ongoing. Also starring Emily Blunt and Millicent Simmons, who gave a great performance in 2017's Wonderstruck. In a post-apocalyptic world overrun by creatures with very sensitive hearing, a family able to communicate in sign language seems to be the only survivors. It's scary, it's beautifully realised, it looks gorgeous, and it has a hell of a lot of heart. There are jump scares, but they're standing on the shoulders of unbelievably tense build-up, achieved mostly through silence. The whole family give incredibly natural performances, and this is to its strength. This is what's holding them together, it's what they're fighting for, and it's the heart of the movie. So much of their reality is built on regret and loss, and the inability to talk freely means that what they can say is measured, precise, and straight to the head, like that one bullet that you've got in Resident Evil 2. All it takes is one look to communicate relief, worry, or severe peril, and I think if John Krasinski and Emily Blunt weren't married, I would be deeply worried for their respective spouses because the chemistry is thick and juicy. You could have 90 solid minutes of those two making faces at each other and it'd be arousing and terrifying at the same time. What isn't covered in all of this is more than made up by perfectly captured facial expressions and visual storytelling, and one of these moments of visual storytelling is my favourite of the movie, when Millicent Simmons, the daughter Reagan, finds out what her dad has been working on all this time in his basement.
Yeah.
I cried an awful lot throughout this thing. Like all great horror, it transcends the genre. It delivers a film with sympathetic characters, beautiful cinematography, and a wholly original experience.
Yeah, it really is very special. And it's interesting to me that it was approached and considered as becoming part of the Cloverfield franchise.
Yeah.
I think it would have been an interesting fit because I think it does do a lot of the same things that 10 Cloverfield Lane did so perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely.
All of which is just so unlike what Cloverfield was. You know, which was just a kind of so-so found footage film. So it's very odd, the legacy of that. It's probably for the best that A Quiet Place is allowed to just be what it is.
Who are we if we can't protect them? We have to protect them.
Now, we never include documentaries in these lists. If we did, we'd be including Three Identical Strangers,
Yeah,
Won't You Be My Neighbor, They'll Love Me When I'm Dead, which I loved. It's so good. Free Solo. It would make these lists a lot harder. My number 9 is Bart Layton's American Animals.
You ever feel like you're waiting for something to happen, but you don't know what it is?
You're in, or you're out.
That thing that could make your life special.
You're in, or you're out. You're in, or you're out.
How can I tell you if I'm in or I'm out without you telling me the first thing about what I might be in or out of?
This would be something dangerous and very exciting.
Which rides the line between documentary and narrative film, based on real events, and has interviews with the actual people involved. But the majority of the film is reconstruction, largely based on accounts from the men, which are likely complete fiction. It's the story of a bored art student who, with the help of his troublemaking best friend, plans a heist of some very rare books from his university library. They rope in 2 other hapless students and even maybe contact a fence to sell them to. As the date of the heist approaches, they start to feel that their greatest motive for going through with it is just how disappointing it would be to not go through with it. And that's what really got to me about this one. Beyond the fantastic style that playfully moves from fact to recreation, and the brilliant performances from the 4 leads, especially Barry Keoghan and Evan Peters, it's all about how fucking relatable this all is. These guys have done everything they have been told to do to live a happy life. They are all promising kids on the road to success, and they are bored. They feel like something incredible was meant to happen to them, and it hasn't. And it can't if they just keep following the path presented to them. So they find something that makes them feel special. They're a part of something that no one else is, and they feel important for the first time in their lives. So when it comes time to back down and acknowledge that they've just been playing games, they can't. As this story played out, I felt like I was right there with them. Just compelled, embarrassed, exhilarated, and deeply ashamed. The self-interest of the whole thing was so fucking relatable. The moments that moved me the most involved the actual participants in the crime really coming to terms with what they did. There's a real regret and poignancy captured there, especially with Warren, the sort of troublemaker of the group. But my favourite moment has got to be the heist itself. It's one of the most riveting moments of crime drama I have ever seen. The first hour of the film builds to it, it takes its time, it wrong-foots you a bit, and it's just nerve-shredding. And I can't remember the last time I felt so tense. And knowing that all of this really happened is definitely part of the thrill.
Yeah, it's squeaky bum time, isn't it?
I don't want you waking up years from now wondering what could have happened and who you could have been.
You're number 8.
Well, it took me a long time to get around to seeing Paul Salt's top 10 of 2017, Lynn Ramsey's You Were Never Really Here.
I'm gonna ask you some questions. How many are there?
One guy inside the front door, second guy on the top floor.
After the tone, please leave a message.
It's done.
Australia released it in 2039, and you don't want to know what I had to do to get there and come back for this. The things I've seen, Paul. I saw you.
How am I doing?
Joaquin Phoenix plays Joe, an ex-soldier with a dark and ill-defined past, just about functioning in society as a fixer, a finder of lost girls. He becomes embroiled in something beyond his radar and must do what he can to stop the backlash from obliterating everything he has left. From the first seconds of the film, everything that follows is an oral assault. Oral, which is not as good a word now, I've had to clarify that. And the rest of the film is a cacophony and an assault in chorus. Everything from the camera work to this hooded Phoenix suggests a transience of character, of life, and all we can do now is follow him, this giant lumbering Phoenix, on this dark and unsettling path. Incredibly, this film has a good heart. There's a moral compass. There's a moral compass. Yeah, Jesus Christ. Compass. There's a moral compass. There is a moral compass there, and it shines slightly amid all the dirt. It's not guaranteed, but it helps to emphasise the humanity in there. Humans for all their problems and bad habits and weaknesses. It's either pointless or it's everything, but it's hard to know which. And this is why when the senator with the missing daughter asks Joaquin Phoenix to hurt the people who took his daughter, it sounds so pathetic, and it demonstrates a complete lack of understanding of the reality of what Joe does on a day-to-day basis, which is all he's got. And that weakness and that ignorance, it's just so human, it's just so relatable. Something Salt said last year, because we've been through a lot of this, similarities to Drive, you're left to fill in the gaps, and it's better for not snoking. I mean, knowing beyond the flashes of childhood, beyond memories of a war zone. I meant snoking. It's brutal without being gory. Its power is in what's suggested. It manages to hold sheer brutality and ugliness in one hand and bittersweet affection and regret in the other. Its direction is precise and delicate when it needs to be, and Johnny Greenwood's soundtrack straddles about 8 genres, and it triggers disgust, discomfort, sadness, tension, and also a quiet, appreciative melancholy that at times approaches something positive, and you really got to hold on to that. My favourite moment, speaking of, is the look of confusion on a young girl's face who never expected kindness again as Joaquin Phoenix leans over to fasten a seatbelt.
Yeah. Oh, so many tender moments. I can't remember what I said about it last year, but yeah, it's really emotionally powerful. Joaquin Phoenix's relationship with his mother is just quite devastating. Quietly devastating as well.
Yeah, he's this he's fucking enormous in this movie, Joaquin Phoenix. He just ate pepperami for a year, and he's such an unstable, violent man, but he's able to relate to his mother, and there are really quiet, touching moments there that are pretty heartbreaking.
Yeah, him and the hitman that he's just killed. It's just, it's all so good.
It's okay, Joe. It's okay.
My number 8 is Deferred. Yeah, the only time you'll be
Why?
hearing about that. Why? Because it's shit.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it.
That's what deferred means. Okay.
Deferred by me due to reasons of quality.
Really should think this through, this top 10 experience.
I really should. I just threw some names together. God, you won't believe what I'm about to talk about for number 7. But after you do your number 8.
My number 7.
I've lost track of how all of this works. Talk about a movie that's good.
Excellent. Climax by Gaspar Noé.
Fuck yeah.
That's my number 7. Yeah, Noé returns with a story of a dance group's party that rapidly descends into primal and savage self-destruction when it becomes apparent that the punch has been spiked. And not with sherry, I'll tell you that for nothing.
Oh, brandy.
Yeah, well, yeah. Obviously. Starring Sofia Boutella, who seems to have been siphoning my energy for the last decade, it's not going to be a surprise to tell you that it's a roller coaster, this one. When I heard Noé's new film was going to be at the 2018 Melbourne Film Festival, I was excited and nervous. Excited because I knew I'd be witnessing something unique, and nervous because I was certain it would push the limits of taste to my own personal threshold of discomfort. It didn't disappoint. What starts off with a comedic bent as we're introduced to the dancers via their audition tapes quickly becomes a dance movie with choreography that deserves a mention by its own merit, but then comes the rest of the movie. Secrets come out, tensions rise, and civility goes out the bloody fenêtre. It's a literal descent at this stage because I was falling off of my chair. As Boutella navigates a war zone of fear and tribal justice, my grip on reality was dwindling as quickly as theirs. As with all Noé movies, it's hallucinatory, pumped full of unpleasant sounds and flashes of awful gurning villains, and is just deeply disorienting in every way. So why is it high up on my list? It's a masterclass. It's extraordinarily well acted, and Boutella isn't the only one who reaches terrifying heights. It's also deeply darkly funny. You might be laughing out of nerves a lot of the time, but it's clear that Noé's going for laughs even in the middle of moments of pure horror. There is literally nothing to help these people. Nothing or no one is coming to their rescue, and every time another layer of hell is set up for these poor people, you have to laugh or else you'll cry. It's absurd and entirely believable, and the soundtrack of 90s dance classics is not the lifeline or grounding force you hoped it would be. It, like everything else, is a joke of Noé's at your expense. My favourite moment would be Sofia Boutella's crowning glory, her minutes-long descent into full-blown madness along a narrow corridor. It's reminiscent of The Possessed, and it has everything that I've described above contained in this sequence. The horror, the comedy, and everything in between.
That's why you asked about Possessed the other day. I did wonder.
That's why... Yeah.
I wondered if like, you were finally going to check out a film I've mentioned or sent you an upsetting clip of, which I do a lot.
I do, 1 in 10.
Ce qui ne me tue pas me rend plus forte.
Speaking of really genuinely upsetting experiences that really shook the foundations of who we are and what we believe, it's time for Luca Guadagnino's shit film, Suspiria.
Bollocks film.
Fuck yeah. Original's best. The most provocative and innovative horror movies of the year. I didn't realize I'd be using the word provocative so recently in general conversation, but never mind. And possibly the decade as well. Luca Guadagnino makes a second consecutive appearance on my top 10 list after last year's Call Me By Your Name, but this is a very different beast. It's a film that has been greatly disadvantaged by being a remake of Dario Argento's garish slasher film.
Totally different film.
Yeah, that I actually like a lot, but currently have a complicated relationship because everybody's suddenly decided it's an unassailable masterpiece in the last few months.
Look, I've been in the I don't like it camp for a long time, so that's why we work well together.
I like it. Okay, it's a good film. It's not its fault. Even though I say it's been disadvantaged, and yet this is the only way in which people should be doing remakes.
Oh, yeah.
It takes the premise of an American girl coming to a German dance school, which is actually a sinister coven of witches, and then completely changes the plot, the tone, the mood, the aesthetic, the music. It finds a whole new way to explore this premise, and I think it does so more authentically.
Agreed.
Argento made one of his Giallo films, like his others, that just so happened to be set in a dance school full of witches. Guadagnino tells a story of a coven and the power struggle within and the people who are trapped inside of that struggle. The magic of the film is terrifying. This is most definitely a horror film and one that is concerned with cruelty and power. The film has a stunning autumnal color planet. Fuck.
Stunning autumnal planet.
The film has a stunning autumnal colour palette, which befits the morose story being told. One of a matriarchy that's lost its way, and a patriarchy that's aging, sad and confused. It's a world in chaos in need of a way forward. It's also a film of real filmmaking bravura, attention-grabbing cuts and exquisite scene compositions that really emphasize the power of the dancing. I really love Dakota Johnson in this. She's
fantastic.
Necessarily elusive, but very expressive, especially in her dancing. Tilda Swinton is fantastic, especially as Madame Blanc, but also as Dr. Joseph Klemperer, a role that I found distracting the first time I saw this, but now see adds a real sensitivity and tenderness to that role. It is something you're aware of, but aware of in kind of a good way. He's different from everyone else around him. And also there's something to be said for the only male prominent role in the film being played by a woman. It's quite amusing. Music is fucking incredible. Thom Yorke, as I'm going to insist on pronouncing it. Thom Yorke. Little Thom Yorke, composing something really sad and poignant and really stirring.
Yeah.
When he needs to do horror, he does so really ably. I love how the track Hooks on the soundtrack still has the sounds of Olga being stuck with the witch's hooks when she's all tragic broken puppet on the floor. And the sad grunts and wet slaps are just part of that sound. You can't separate
the Hook song. I wonder what this one's going to be like. I imagine he just remembers his childhood in Wellingborough, and it all comes flowing back. The music just flows.
Oh, best summer of my life. The film is a fucking feast. It's hard not to pick one of the powerful dance sequences for favourite moment, or the lush dream sequences, in which the witches send their dreams to Susie, and do so in this really Tarkovsky, Lynch, abstract, lo-fi, ultra-natural, but immaculately stylized montage of shots that just literally left me breathless both times they did it. There's 2 dream sequences and they're fucking amazing. And there's the explosive finale, which is only dampened a little bit by the CGI blood. But no, I am going with the epilogue, and specifically the scene where Dr. Klemperer is visited by Suspiriorum and is told of his wife's fate and the penance that he must pay for his sins. It's moved me to tears 3 times now.
Oh, fantastic. It is such a rich and gorgeous looking film, and it goes so infinitely deeper than the original. I'm perplexed by the backlash that it's had. It's a really incredible film, and I can't wait to watch it again. I've just got to convince Nell that it's social horror like Get Out.
It reminds me of like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You'd be hard pushed to point at the horror bits, except for the horror bits.
Yeah.
Because there are 2 or 3 moments of really fucking unpleasant horror that's really hard to watch. I mean, the dancing sequence is one of the most powerful things.
Pretty thrilling. It's not horror, it's horror.
It's sad horror as well. It's just, no.
Yeah.
That was my sad scream.
That's beautiful.
There are 2 things that dance can never be again: beautiful and cheerful. Today we need to break the nose of every beautiful thing.
Your number 6.
Shoplifters.
Fuck yeah.
どうしたのママは
Directed by Hirokatsu Koreda, or Koreda Hirokatsu, depending on if you're right.
Depending if you're foreign.
The film follows a non-biological family who shoplift in order to get by as their various jobs don't drag them over the breadline. The family find a girl alone with various injuries and decide to take her home and feed her. It gets harder and harder to send her back to her abusive home, and they take her in as one of their own. This is one of those films that captures one thing with such precision that everything around it falls into place. What this film and Roma have in common is they are presenting a flawed family and a family ideal. In rescuing young Yuri from her abusive parents, the family comes together to look after her, to help her realise she is not to blame for her abuse and what a real family would do for its members. And in that, it's perfect. The family dynamic, from the clowning father to the reserved but warm and irreverent mum, the young boy who's protective of his own space but also the attention he gets from his dad, and the gran, a skilled extortionist who takes the granddaughter of an ex-husband under her wing. They each play their parts to look out for one another in a society that doesn't always take proper care of those who need it most. This could easily be set in 99% of the countries in the world, but being set in Japan gives this situation an added frisson of the fringe. It makes their outsider status more pronounced. Lily Frankie as the dad and Sakura Ando as the mum are amazing and give such warm and versatile performances. Their scenes with the rest of the family make them the life and soul of that unit, while their moments alone are so natural it's hard not to smile the whole way through. It makes what comes even harder to swallow because we know these people, we care for them deeply, but we know how reality works. There are also plenty of great comedic moments, a lot of which revolve around shoplifting. It's a quiet, gentle and delicate film that tries its hardest to keep sickness and stress at bay, but in doing so makes you all the more aware that they are ever present and close. My favourite moment is a scene where Sakura Ando, the mum, is explaining to Yuri, the little girl they find, how a family who loves each other should behave. It's indescribably heartbreaking that such a thing should ever have to be said, but the film presents this like any other moment with utmost clarity and affection.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a stunning film. And it's a film that really plays with sort of morality and shows the warmer side to child kidnapping.
Yeah.
Which I think is something that doesn't get said enough.
Two sides to every coin, except for the coins that I use for gambling.
Yeah, it's a really poignant film. My number 6 is The Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
People are so easily distracted. So I'm the distractor with a little story. People can't get enough of them because, well, they connect the stories to themselves, I suppose. And we all love hearing about ourselves. So long as the people in the stories are us, but not us.
This'll tell the tale.
What a treat of a film. The Coen brothers write and direct 6 tales of the American frontier. A singing cowboy comes into town seeking cards and good company. A bank robber discovers more than he bargained for. A strange pair of performers travel from town to town in search of an audience. An old prospector suspects he's found a pocket of gold. A young woman undertakes a dangerous journey. And 5 strangers find themselves in a spooky carriage ride through the night. The first story is a darkly comic delight, and the last is a rather camp gothic horror tale. So the films become gradually more somber until they go right out the other way, you see. No one can write Western dialogue like the Coen brothers can. You've got amazing performances from the likes of Tim Blake Nelson, Willie Watson, James Franco, Stephen Root, Panshot, Liam Neeson, Harry Melling, Zoe Kazan, Bill Heck. Brendan Gleeson is so fucking beautiful in this movie. I feel like in this movie you're seeing Brendan Gleeson's soul for the first time. It's just the bit where he sings.
Teased it in Bruges. And in this film he finally opened his maw and sucked us all in.
I can't, Tom.
And my favourite, Tom Waits, who carries almost an entire story on his own. My favourite story, in fact.
My favourite too.
It's just 20 minutes of a man methodically tracking down a gold vein, disregarding nature, and having a bit of a run-in with a ne'er-do-well, the owl. It's everything I love about westerns. It's sparse, tense, and incredibly intimate, yet also somehow mythic. You know, this is somehow the story of the 21st century, even though there's only 2 people in it. The Girl Who Got Rattled is a close second because I love the 3 main characters and how they interact, and that final shootout is incredible. Yeah, all 6 stories are just fantastic and have their own highlights. But my favourite scene is not from my favourite story, which is more of a sort of slow mood piece. so it's hard to draw scenes from. My favourite single scene just has to be from the titular story, from Buster Scruggs. One of the sequences where the jolly, always smiling, often singing Buster Scruggs, played fucking sublimely by Tim Blake Nelson, proves himself to be one of the scariest creations the Coen Brothers have ever put on screen. And I can't remember laughing so hard in the cinema this year as when this is happening, and his best scene, I think, is probably the scene in the gambling house where he deals with Surly Joe and then sings a song about it.
Surly Joe, Surly Joe, Surly Joe, Surly Joe, won't be missed by anyone with Surly Joe. Humankind he frowned upon, but not now his face is gone. Guess your frowning days are done, oh Surly Joe.
It's I promise you're not going to see anything else like this anywhere else, probably this year, next year, the year after that. It's one of a kind.
He's holding out his bum, listeners at home.
Get a load of this.
My number 5 is a Green Book.
I'm a musician. I'm about to embark on a concert tour in the Deep South. What other experience do you have?
Public relations.
Do you foresee any issues in working for a black man?
You in the Deep South? There's gonna be problems.
Directed by Peter Farrelly. That's right. One of the Farrelly brothers responsible for There's Something About Mary, Dumb and Dumber and Kingpin. Green Book is a huge departure that still bristles with the wit and great visual comedy of his back catalogue. Viggo Mortensen plays Tony Lip, a working-class bouncer who's employed by pianist Don Shirley, played by Mahershala Ali, to drive him around the Deep South on tour. He's recruited for his ability to take care of himself, and what follows is a classic buddy comedy set against the backdrop of US race relations in the 60s. This is about what two people can learn from one another. On a small scale, it's personal, but the macrocosm is one of cultural exchange, and not just Italian and African American, but high and low culture, but rough and refined. Mortensen is giving it both barrels with an Italian American persona, but it's a performance that's elevated above comedy and becomes true because of Ali as counterpoint. He's upright and tense, erudite and standoffish, professional and curt, and deeply troubled. It's two people genuinely trying to understand the other in order to get on with their jobs and lives. It's painful watching Tony try to do good and crashing and burning, stepping time and again into potholes and making some really lovely as in a very sarcastic sense, racist gaffes. More than anything, it's a plea for humanity, for understanding and learning. It's beautiful for that, and it means the jokes hit even harder. Mahershala Ali, which I haven't really spoken of quite yet, just gives such an incredible reserved performance of somebody who's been hurt so many times as an incredible, brilliant man who is denied the rights owed to any white person in that country and should be given to everybody in the world. And the way that he deals with them with such civility and such self-respect that by the time that the 10th time that he's extricated himself from another awful situation, your heart is just in pieces on the floor. Criticisms that it wasn't as hard-hitting as BlacKkKlansman or Sorry to Bother You may be true, but it's also to misunderstand the film because it's not a protest movie. It's not an attack on policy or ignorance. This movie is a process of understanding between two people that spreads the second it's cemented. It's about two people with surface differences understanding how deep their commonality goes, and that's a beginning straight out the speeches of Martin Luther King. On top of that, it's really funny, it's skillfully drawn, and it's very heartbreakingly real. My favourite moment would be any time Mortensen and Ali talk to each other. They are my favourite comedy pairing of this year, and dramatic as well. But to be specific, it's Mortensen trying to encourage Ali to play the music he wants to play, paying him compliments that don't sound as good as they must have in his head, but it's all about intent, and watching him trying to understand this totally foreign entity in the refined, highly educated and troubled Ali is humbling.
Yeah, Mahershala Ali's really great in that film. He's great in everything. I really like him as a performer.
He's great in everything.
What are you doing?
A letter.
May I? Dear Dolores, sometimes you remind me of a house. You know this is pathetic, right? Put this down. The distance between us is breaking my spirit. Falling in love with you
Was the easiest thing I have ever done. P.S. Kiss the kids.
That's like clanging a cowbell at the end of Shostakovich's 7.
That's good.
It's perfect, Tony.
Speaking of race relations, my number 5 is Sorry to Bother You.
Awesome.
I got promoted. I'm a power caller.
What do they sell?
They're not selling it, but we selling. No, there's no amount of money that make me do that.
Here's the starting salary.
Well, man, I'm gonna have to get me some new suits.
Whatever I wear, no, I'm here to be classy.
It is morally emaciated. I can't ride with you.
I'm doing something I'm really good at.
The lighter side to challenging racism than Beale Street. Weirdly enough, after I saw this, I was waiting for Katie, and a fellow viewer came up to me and asked, if you had to describe that movie to a stranger, how would you do it? And I said, well, stranger, I'd been thinking about this for my review, so I'd formulated it a bit, and I said, I guess a desperate man enters the bizarre world of telemarketing and finds that he has an unusual talent for it. Summarizing what happens in this movie, with its labor politics, race dynamics, secret circles, cults, performance art, internet memes, and genetic experiments, would probably just spoil the fun. Suffice to say, this is a hilarious insight into the modern world and the anxiety we all feel around work. Director Boots Riley has, incredibly, his debut feature, established himself as a totally unique artistic voice. I guess you can think of Michel Gondry or Charlie Kaufman, but more politically aware and scary. His film is more of a horror film than I think anything that they've made. It's a fierce critique of what capitalism does to sensitive souls and the ways in which we all become things we don't want to get by in life, but also with this very specific racial perspective. The idea of the sort of young black person having to give up their cultural identity in order to just get by in American life is something that maybe I can't directly relate to, but is very powerful in the way that it's articulated. Lakeith Stanfield and Tessa Thompson are the heart of the movie, and they are both brilliant. Their comedic timing is perfect, but they're also just really affecting as a young couple trying to live their lives without compromising anything too important. And then you've got Armie Hammer as this Machiavellian joy. This is the film's antagonist. He's amazing.
Total sociopath.
He's fantastic. I love him. He's one of my favourite villains of the year, I think. In terms of favourite scene, I love the gentler moments between Stanfield and Thompson's characters, but the moment that made me absolute happiest is probably the face-to-face between Stanfield and Hammer, in which Hammer is making a proposition to Stanfield's character. They are both amazing in that scene, and it's probably where the film makes its boldest move, and where Riley is prepared to take this narrative becomes fully and gleefully apparent. It feels like one of those films where so many cult directors try to be like, oh, this is so crazy, you're not going to believe this, but the hype is true in this one. You're not going to believe what happens in this. It's ridiculous and insightful and hilarious, so by all means watch it.
Yeah, I'd say it's just pretty amazing watching the hoops that these human beings have to go through to get where they want to be.
To just fucking get by, to be alive, is insane.
Some for the homies and some for me!
My number 4 is Infinity War.
Infinity War!
Infinity War? It had to be.
The entire time I knew him, he only ever had one goal. To wipe out half the universe. If he gets all the Infinity Stones, he can do it with the snap of his fingers. Just like that.
Tell me his name again.
Sometimes you've got to get your movie critic credits out in the bit where you talk about Roma in a historical and cinematic context. Directed by Anthony and Joe Russo and starring all of them, Thanos starts actually trying to complete his plan of assembling the Infinity Stones and halving the population of the universe, including Swindon, in order to save the other half.
Yeah, he belatedly starts his plan.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'll actually start trying now. Yeah. Can the Avengers come together like they've always meant to in order to stop him? It's a spectacle movie, it's an event movie, and finally sees all the MCU in one film with all their personalities and comedic styles smushed together, and it's done very, very well. I laughed a lot, and I was bereft when it ended. Tying together so many characters from so many movies and keeping what makes them great is a skill. I loved having Steve Rogers' goofy fish out of time shtick, then suddenly switching to Star-Lord manning off against Thor, who doesn't even notice, all the while keeping their own comedic styles. This could easily be Guardians, it could easily be Thor, and it's full of really satisfying team-ups. Iron Man and Spider-Man together is better realised than it was in Homecoming. Thor and Rocket is surprisingly emotional pairing, and of course Vision and Scarlet Witch is way more human and relatable than I previously would have thought possible. And, you know, plus they were walking past that kebab shop in Edinburgh, and you know that was their haunt on that romantic weekend away. It brings to mind the oeuvre of Lynch, where each film is a window into a very specific part of his... I'm joking, but I said all that stuff during Roma, and I just wanted to balance it out. I just love the villain. Thanos, his plan may not make sense to someone who isn't a total sociopath or who can deal with feedback, but he is a sociopath and or an egomaniac. It's a plan that works logically, and for that reason Thanos is determined to make it happen, which is what makes it scary. It doesn't matter if you can think of better ideas. That's the thing that this lunatic has decided is the thing that works. It's a palpable threat and a brave ending, which I'm sure will all be undone come Endgame, but the first time I saw it, it floored me. Every other time I fizz with excitement, and I hope that Endgame will provide the ending Infinity War and these heroes who have been with us for a decade at this stage deserve. My favourite moment, it's hard to choose because this is a movie of huge moments, but the final fight in Wakanda, where most of our main characters are allowed one fucking awesome moment, is really thrilling.
So the argument there was, it makes logical sense to a psychopath.
Yes.
Someone like incapable of sense.
It does work.
Doesn't. Do you know when the world's population was half what it is now? 1970. Thanks for the 40 years, Thanos.
It would work, right?
How so?
By cutting back on resources around the universe?
First of all, it's amazing that across the entire universe, we've all reached the crisis point at the exact same time, and we can't create more resources with its Infinity Stone. But also, like I say, it was only 40 years ago that we were half what we are now. Everyone in the universe has 2 kids. We're right back where we were.
Yeah, it logically makes sense to him.
Okay.
That's what makes it scary.
Yeah. It's definitely a very scary idea, the idea that a madman has his hand on such immense power and that they come so close so many times to getting it off of him and yet fail due to petty concerns. My favourite thing about Infinity War, I think, is the fact that it just really emphasises at all times the theme of not giving up one life for another, or one life for many, not trading lives, as Captain America says. And literally every stone he gets because someone refuses to make that sacrifice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really interesting. My number 4, Happy New Year, Colin Bursted.
Nice.
Help me.
I am helping by not helping.
No, it's not helping. Helping, that is just not helping.
Helping you, but helping the situation.
I'm sorry, I don't follow that.
The problem is not the problem. The problem is you.
I sat through the first 10 minutes of this film wondering when the frantic introduction would end and the film would start proper. And somewhere around that 10th minute, it occurred to me that this film is not going to slow down or relent, but maintain this manic pace throughout. And I fell in love with it. It's the story of Colin Bursted. Well, it's the story of Coriolanus, really, but here, Colin Bursted. As he tries to get his big extended family together on New Year's Eve. Unfortunately, his sister has invited their estranged brother. Tensions soon rise as we learn the complicated relationships these characters have. Factions are drawn, a prince is exiled, a rebellion brews. A rebellion builds, and sooner or later, Colin is going to have to face his nemesis, beard to beard. I don't think he has a beard. So, as mentioned earlier, it's impeccably paced. He should. He has a metaphysical beard of arseholishness. This is a race through this night and these characters. It captures the manic energy of a big get-together where you're sort of moving through various rooms, encountering different people and catching snippets of conversations. It's constantly making you aware of how simultaneous the action is. This conversation is happening next door to this conversation. This character's just around the corner from this character. There's an immediacy to everything, and they are all trapped together. Nobody's alone. But it's hilarious. It has some of the best character actors and comedic actors in the British film industry, such as Dude McKeegan, Hayley Squires, Charles Dance, Bill Patterson, best voice haver ever, Mark Monero, Sam Riley as the despicable brother, and the surprisingly excellent Asim Chowdhury.
Yes.
But the movie belongs to Colin, played by Neil Maskell, who provides a comedic masterclass here. The character is so well realised and believable. He's tragic and just, very, very funny. Clint Mansell also does the music, which is this bizarre medieval jaunt, which is perfect. Yeah. My favourite scene is tricky because the movie is basically one huge scene. I love the moment early on where Colin's mother slips on her way into the house for the first time. And she just immediately has hurt herself and needs everyone to help her. And the look of frustration on Colin's face is so perfect and awful. I didn't know other people felt that way sometimes.
It's awful.
Someone
that's
in your family.
A death trap.
Someone in your family has hurt themselves and you just know this is going to be a fucking drama and you get irritated that they've hurt themselves. God, that's beautiful. But for my favourite moment, I'm just going to pick one of the genuinely affecting moments, and that's probably the second time that Colin confronts his shitty brother, where it all comes out.
It's so painful. Like it's a film with real pace, and it captures all the horror and anxiety of a family get together in the UK. It's so difficult at times and feels so fucking unfair, but it's God,
like life.
It's great.
Like family. I mean, the horrible idea at the centre of it is that no matter what your family does, they are still your family, and
yeah.
I love the ending for that, because the ending it goes another way, which I really love. So it's great. The last words of this film are perfect.
The final 10 minutes of the film, in fact, I think I just spent going, what the fuck? What? Just family stuff.
It's just another Tuesday.
For me, it was Tuesday. That's right. Neil Maskell goes on to rule the world.
Of course he does.
If you're talking about wasting time, wasting money, is spending money on this kind of...
Spending money on something
this
I
kind of
actually
stunt.
want to
This
do
is
for the
a-
whole
this is a
family, rather than
stunt.
just
It's a
pouring
stunt. Just
money in
showing
your
off.
direction.
Showing off. You don't need to pour money
You're
in my
going to ruin
direction.
You're
You
going
just
to
need
ruin this night for, over this, aren't you?
I'm not going to ruin it. I'll try not to ruin it.
I'll try
It's
not
almost
to ruin
ruined
it.
from the day one when I come.
You're the only person who has to try not to
Look,
ruin
your mother's
something.
hurt herself.
What's your number 3?
It is Gus Van Sant's Don't Worry, He Won't Get Far on Foot.
The last day that I walked, I woke up without a hangover.
Keep them coming, bro.
Dexter had mistaken the light pole for an exit and slammed into it at 90 miles an hour.
Joaquin Phoenix plays John Callahan, alcoholic, paralysed in a car accident after a night out. It follows his rehab in terms of his disability and addiction, and rising to fame as a cartoonist who dealt with controversial topics in black and bleak ways. It's a true story, based on the autobiography of the same name. Phoenix is unsurprisingly brilliant. The desperation and frustration that Callahan battles with as an alcoholic and recovering alcoholic, as a quadriplegic, going through physical rehab, is at the forefront of every scene. He's irascible and pleasantly overbearing. Both his highs and lows are infectious, whether he's just confronting strangers on the street to show them his cartoons or, talking to the people who are trying to help him through his rehab. So it deals with addiction and mental and physical health through this one character, but also John Callahan's Alcoholics Anonymous group, which is run by Jonah Hill and featuring Udo Kier, Beth Ditto, Kim Gordon, and a couple of others who Hill refers to as his piglets. Because piglets are small, timid animals that try to be brave and occasionally conquer their fears. They're funny and flawed and give a shit about Callahan. They give him shit about making excuses because they give a shit, and it's the best thing ever. It's realistic, it's inspiring because it's tough as hell. Jonah Hill lives by the ethos, celebrate mediocrity, because you're never not an addict. You're always only one drink away from relapse, and it's hard to fight that, but you do it every day, and that's what this film is. It's a series of days, a series of struggles. What do you forgive? What do you take responsibility for? And when do you ask for forgiveness? These are the important questions. Jonah Hill is at his career best, and the supporting cast of Rooney Mara, Udo Bloody Kier, Beth Ditto, and Jack Black make for a really likeable ensemble. They're beacons in the fog. They're really human, and I clung to them all with a lump in my throat. On top of everything else, it's a movie about art and expression, addiction and mental health, and they're all things that appeal to me and they leave lasting impressions. It's just an awesome film. My favourite moment would be Jonah Hill's Celebrate Mediocrity speech that features the line, "Today I had a coffee, it was fucking delicious." It's wise, it's emblematic of the tone and message of the film, and it's something that's maintained throughout with precision.
Yeah, Hill was such an interesting character, and I really love that that whole attitude of just, hey, regular life's fucking great. It's great not being high or drunk or whatever it is that you want to do. It's fantastic.
When I first entered the program, I had 2 pairs of pants. One with shit in them and one without. And I didn't care which one of them I was wearing. Today, I celebrate mediocrity. I woke up and I put on a non-shitty pair of pants, and I walked to get a cup of coffee, and it was fucking delicious. And my day has been pretty good until I came in here and saw all of you.
He's a very, very well captured tragic story there. Yeah, it's just part of the wider tragic film.
All right, my number 3 is First Reformed.
I've decided to keep a journal, not in a word program or digital file, but in longhand, writing every word out so that every inflection of penmanship, every word chosen, scratched out, revised, is recorded. To set down all my thoughts and the simple events of my day factually and without hiding anything. When writing about oneself, one should show no mercy. I will keep this diary for 1 year, 12 months, and at the end of that time, it will be destroyed, shredded, then burnt. The experiment will be over.
A profound story of introspection and despair, the likes of which we don't see too often. It's the story of Father Toller, played by Ethan Hawke, in, I believe, the greatest role of his career. He's a quiet and thoughtful man who has decided to keep a diary in the hopes that it helps with the absence of God that he is experiencing.
Better than Jolly the Pimp.
Even better, somehow.
Are you sure?
He finds more depth. Even more depth.
Oh, interesting.
Toller's got a lot to write about in his journal. The most pressing issue is that a parishioner is concerned that her husband is despairing over the seemingly inevitable climate disaster the Earth is facing, which also then becomes his concern as well. Another is that the megachurch Abundant Life is pressuring Toller to
handle the anniversary service of his historical but increasingly underattended church. He's also dealing with guilt surrounding his son's death, and he's an alcoholic, and his health is failing. So, as the pressure mounts, Father Toller contemplates what the correct action should be. Comparisons abound to director-screenwriter Paul Schrader's most acclaimed previous work, the screenplay for Taxi Driver. We've got a lone figure.
Never heard of it.
It's quite old. It's rubbish, really boring.
Oh, alright.
Yeah. We've got a lone figure who sees the pain and misery of the world around him and is tempted to take violent action to put the world to rights. But Toller is such a sympathetic character, and this is a credit to Schrader as screenwriter and Hawke as a performer. It's a perfect marriage, really, and they have created someone I genuinely loved spending time with, and whose descent into despondency is so heartbreaking. It's really gripping because you want Toller to beat this despair, but the way is so unclear as to how he can get out of his situation. I really love the dialogue in this movie, so... It's a shame to pick a favourite scene that is entirely visual, in which Toller experiences an out-of-body journey thanks to the physical connection he achieves with a parishioner. But also the film's ending is one of the boldest things I've seen recently. It's a very powerful work.
Even more so than Jolly the Pimp.
Even more so.
My hands shake as I write these lines.
Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb?
Can God forgive us for what we've done to this world?
Who can know the mind of God?
Well, my number 2 is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
That was X-Men.
That's Men Behaving Badly.
Spider-Man Behaving Badly.
Nice. Fuck yeah.
Hello, OG team. You've probably noticed that I was in fact correct. That is the Spider-Man theme. The X-Men theme goes...
My name is Miles Morales. I'm the one and only Spider-Man. At least that's what I thought.
You ever hear of the Super Collider? You're gonna love this.
Dimension opening now.
You're like me.
That's impossible. Written by Phil Lord of Lego Movie fame, and then Rodney Rothman, and directed by Bob Persichetti, Peter Ramsey, and another man called Rodney Rothman. Persecuti. And look, let me tell you, these cooks made a fine-ass broth.
Yeah, they did.
Miles Morales is a relatively popular kid sent to a hoity-toity rich folk school to realise his potential, hanging out with his Uncle Aaron, played by Mahershala Ali, again, tagging in an abandoned subway station. He is bitten by a radioactive sporder, and you know the rest. Or do you absolute scum? Spider-Man already exists in this New York City, and Miles has his comic books to guide him, until he decides to investigate the abandoned station where he was bitten and witnesses the opening of Parallel Dimensions by Big Bad Wilson Fisk, aka as Kingpin. Our dimension's Spider-Man is gone, but who knows what's coming through from the others. It's Nicolas Cage. Where to start with why this is the best comic book movie ever made? The animation is unique. It's crammed full of details and little jokes you won't pick up the first time around, which is fortunate because the rest of the film around it really does deserve repeat viewings. The character design is superb. The ensemble spider people are thoroughly fleshed out and well realised and just make for heartwarming and very real relationships.
Even Peter Porker.
Peter Porker, who I thought was voiced by Nathan Lane and was disappointed to find that it wasn't Nathan Lane.
What? Bullshit. Worst film.
From Peter Porker to Noir Spider-Man by Nick Cage, Gwen Stacy's voiced by Haley Steinfeld.
Oh, she's great.
All the characters bring different artistic styles and humour with them. The voice acting all around is fantastic, from Shameik Moore as Miles Morales, Haley Steinfeld, Mahershala Ali, Jake Johnson as Peter B. Parker, like a regular Spider-Man from the B universe. This one's got a gut and he's a bit of a fuck up. Catherine Hahn as Doc Octavia.
Oh, she's great.
Yeah, and Liev Schreiber bringing new sadness to the role of scary Kingpin. It's a really subversive and surprising comedy, and the animation helps realise that. And because they're funny without approaching obnoxious, you really come to care about the characters, and it makes the emotional beats and themes of family and belonging hit so hard. This was a real weeper for me. It's just a fresh take on a superhero that has been flogged and dragged through the mud by a crowd of bastards. The soundtrack is fucking killer, both the original songs written for the movie and the score. It was really difficult to choose between this and my number 1 because both affected me in profound ways. That an animated comic book movie can do this shows how far we've come and how sophisticated these movies are capable of being. And you know, Bill Mayer needs to fucking buck his ideas up, I tell you that.
What a lovely man.
My favourite moment has to be Miles' leap of faith. It's built up for the longest time, and the coming together of the Spider People is so fun and so hard fought for that the payoff is the most satisfying of the year. I really love this film. This film is your number 8?
My number 8, yes. And I remember that there's a plot point some ways in involving Miles' uncle, the Mahershala Ali type.
Yeah.
And when it happens, I remember thinking to myself, oh, this is actually going to tell a traditional story as well. You know, in addition to everything else it's doing, it's also going to be a movie.
Yeah.
Everything up to that point had been so bold, so weird and inventive that I was taken aback by a plot point. Not in a bad way. It's like, oh, great, this is going to resolve as well as just being crazy and interesting and absorbing. And the narrative style just matches that aesthetic for sheer innovation. I was smiling throughout the whole thing. I think my favorite scene, it has to be that iconic dive up. He dives off of a building in his Spider-Man suit. He's just embraced the identity for the first time, and the image is reversed, so his descent looks like a rise into the city. It's stunning.
My leap of faith. Same moment, my dude. Forgot to mention, actually, if we're talking about family, that his mum and dad, and I don't actually know who voices Miles's mum and dad, but the family dynamic is, again, it's just such a wonderful addition to that movie, and it just makes it such a well-rounded experience. Correction. Turns out the guy who played Miles Morales' dad in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was actually Brian Tyree Henry, who was Daniel Carty in If Beale Street Could Talk, the guy responsible for delivering the chilling, scared of the police, now I've spent 2 years in prison guy. So how's about that for family? He wasn't family with Fonny in If Beale Street Could Talk. Also, the mum, Luna Lauren Velez, who was in Dexter, which I only saw a bit of before getting bored, is also amazing, and thought it was worth a mention of her name. Stellar work all round. Back to the show.
Remember, what makes you different?
Let's go!
Is what makes you Spider-Man.
My number 2 is Leave No Trace.
Do you feel safe living with your dad?
We didn't need to be rescued.
Your dad needs to provide you shelter and a place to live.
He did. Are we gonna be okay here?
You can still think our own thoughts.
A lot of broken men in my top 10 this year, and more than a few of the films that they're in are actually about the women who are around them.
Male tears.
Leave No Trace is astonishingly only Deborah Granick's third feature film, 8 years after the similarly excellent Winter's Bone. This is about a 13-year-old girl, adorably named Tom, who lives illegally in one of America's incomprehensibly huge national parks with her father, the incomprehensibly huge Ben Foster, the traumatized war veteran Will.
She's also illegally named. I'm called a girl Tom.
One day they are found and taken into custody. They're allowed to be together so long as they integrate back into society. But it's not long before Will feels the call of the wilderness again and begins the hunt for the wilder people. First, let's talk about Thomasin McKenzie, who plays the young girl in this film. She's a New Zealand actress with a very promising future, which includes David Michod's adaptation of Shakespeare's Henriade called The King, and has the best cast ever. Yeah. Look out for that this year.
No.
Oh, okay. Just a thought. Here she is powerfully fragile. Almost ghostly. You know, her frail voice is so profoundly endearing. She's so expressive. I really love her and just the way she interacts with her fellow performers. She really is. Ben Forster is... Ben Forster is subtly broken and carries this sort of permanent sorrow around with him, mostly in his beard, but his eyes have just been burned into his face. And the direction from Granick is intimate, grandiose, and just note perfect. She should have been nominated for Best Director, I think, and she could have won it as well.
Yeah.
But no, let's give a third one to Kwan. That's fine. Now the shelf can look symmetrical.
It's fine. In 15 years, she'll do some really shitty biopic about, like, a sequel to J. Edgar Hoover. A sequel to J. Edgar, and it'll be her time. It's her turn.
It'll be her turn, and the next young talent can just bitterly look at the mantle. I see a lot of critics about this film talking about the theme of addiction, but it never felt like addiction for me. Like Will is addicted to the wilderness. He just can't stand society. I think he can't bear to be a part of any community, and I think there's a self-loathing there too.
Yeah,
and there's a profound comment about ex-servicemen and the damage they endure. He's not going to the woods to live and is in love with that lifestyle. He's going to escape from a lifestyle he hates, which is why it's just not something that Tom can continue to do with him.
Yeah.
My favorite scene is a line that comes in the most poignant moment of the film, and it's a line that brings me to tears just thinking about it. Will wants to move on again. Tom decides that this is the time to stand up to him and says,
I don't want to leave. These people, they're not that different from us.
Yes, they've been very good to us, but we have to...
You need, not me. The same thing that's wrong with you isn't wrong with me.
I know.
really thinking about it, it should have been in my top 30. If we can just retcon it that it was in there somewhere. It's
just disregard whatever number 30 is.
I think for me, it's Ben Forster's career best.
Yeah, definitely.
Just everything's been building up to this. It's a really lovely film, and it's heartbreaking just thinking about it.
Such a great film. Okay, let's reveal our favourite films of the year in about 20 minutes. We are rapidly going to eke this out by revealing our numbers 30 for 11 of our top 30s of the year.
And then we're going to do 50 to 31.
Yep.
And then next week...
then we're going to do 10 through 2 again. Then we're going to do each other's. Like, we're going to reverse and talk about what we think the other liked about the top 50 through 22.
And doing impressions of the other person. It's going to be really good, everyone.
That's going to come in about an hour. I hope you've all got the agendas for today's podcast. Consult them now. There is a lunch break not included. Now, whoever does this the fastest is going to get a prize. So, go!
My number 30 is Bad Times at the El Royale, starring everyone as a bunch of strangers converging on the El Royale to find that they can't even bury their secrets here for all the awful secrets stuffed into the ground. Brilliant characters, gripping pacing, thrilling tension, very interesting and enjoyable hook of a movie.
The Endless is my number 30. A pair of brothers return to the suicide cult that they escaped as teenagers, only to find out that not only did the cult not commit suicide, but seemed to have changed very little. Really inventive and creepy horror film with a lovely dynamic between the leads. And some really just inventive stuff.
My 29 is Stan and Ollie. Steve Coogan and John C. Reilly star in this Laurel and Hardy later years biopic where they struggle to revive ailing careers. Great performances overflowing with melancholic nostalgia and oozing all the wonder of a movie about creating art, with genuinely hilarious set pieces paying homage to the famous routines. Warm, heartwarming, hearty.
29, Vice. Hilarious, painful, and Christian Bale is just incredibly charismatic as the awful ex-president Dick Cheney. It's
good.
Really funny and inventive, yeah.
Ex-president?
Oh, I guess ex-vice president.
I guess de facto. 28, Christopher Robin. It got to me so much more than I was expecting. Ewan McGregor plays an older, I've written Christoph Robin here, and Pooh and pals decide to inject a little joy back into his life. It's ridiculously heartwarming. The amazing rendering of Pooh and Co. and Tarkovsky-esque depictions of nature make this a real deep cut. I spent the movie with a lump in my throat that for once wasn't half-chewed bread. Can't recommend it enough.
Good stuff. Number 28, Asako 1 and 2. It's just one film, though. A beautifully evocative and provocative love story about a girl ensnared by a rebellious pop idol, but charmed by his lookalike. I love it for its really interesting insight into a life lived in Tokyo, and just the utter ballsiness of its midway twist, and the ramifications of it. I'm very, very happy with.
27, Upgrade. Logan Marshall Green plays a technophobe whose life is stomped to poop when thugs kill his wife and leave him paralysed. The company his wife worked for implant him with an AI upgrade that gives him his body back, as well as the tools to wreak bloody, satisfying vengeance on those who wronged him. But who's in control? Bleak and funny in equal measure, with shocking flashes of gore, it's a very enjoyable action flick. Classic sci-fi premise with a few garnishes here and there, thoroughly satisfying all the way through. It's satisfying twice.
Speaking of shocking moments of gore, my number 27 is The Old Man and the Gun. A stunning swan song for Robert Redford, a real change of pace for a ghost story director David Lowery, and a poignant story of a troublemaker growing old. Perfect capstone to an amazing career.
26, Happy New Year, Colin Uranus. We've discussed this already. It's fantastic. It's fast-paced and it's full of angst-inducing moments, amazing comedic performances, great Clint Mansell soundtrack. I fucking love you, Ben Wheatley.
Speaking of, we've already discussed this already, incredible moments in Ben Wheatley. My number 26, It's a Quiet Place. Taut but powerful thriller about monsters that can only hear you. Brilliantly acted, devastatingly tense film.
My 25 is Overlord. Paratroopers paratroop into occupied France to blow up a tower in the run-up to D-Day, but find the Nazis there conducting experiments on the townspeople. It manages to have moments both incredibly smart and gloriously dumb. Some of the best practical effects I've seen in bloody ages. It's funny, wonderful character arc, slick and cool. Kurahi.
My number 25 is Black Panther. My favourite Marvel of the year and easily top 5 of all time. Killmonger is top 5 Marvels, that is, not films of all time. That would be very confusing.
That wouldn't make any sense, yeah.
Wait, top 5... There's maths you can do that make this make sense. You have to go hexadecimal. Killmonger is a fantastic villain with a really relatable pain in his core, and the scene with him and his father in the spirit plane gets me every time. Also, the best Marvel score ever, care of Ludwig Göransson.
I thought you meant the Kendrick Lamar soundtrack. 24, Deadpool 2. Bigger, cooler, crasser, and with more heart than the original. It's a great sequel, full of laughs and action, and it manages to do all of this without hitting too many of the same notes as the original.
Absolutely. 24, Revenge. A bloody thriller about a young woman on the run in the desert from 3 pursuers. It's playfully fun in its extreme violence and tension, but also very subversive rape revenge horror film, so I highly recommend it.
23 is Mom and Dad. Mom and Dodd. Brian Taylor of Neville Dean Taylor brings more Cage brilliance into my top 10. A virus of some sort is driving parents to killing their kids in grisly, gory and marvellous ways. Full of the frenetic balls-to-the-wall action of Crank and Gamer, there's always time for a tweak, a fizz or a comedic juxtaposition to make this film never a dull moment. Laugh a minute and then gone before you've had time to rearrange your balls.
Gone in 60 seconds, baby Cage. Number 23, it's Tully. A poignant look at motherhood in the modern world with an amazing performance from Charlize Theron. That's all I wrote about that. It's really good, and I find the twist really quite interesting. I like it.
Gorgeous.
But yeah, it's just everything beforehand is just this really wonderful observation about her life. I love it.
Number 22 is Beautiful Boy, one of those films immediately written off by idiots for being bleak for the sake of bleak, and in some cases because Timothée Chalamet was good looking. A fractured relationship between father Steve Carell and addict son Chalamet, stretched and stressed time and again through rehab and relapse. Painful, scooped out my soul, really affecting story of addiction, precise and wise.
Yeah, it's not what my erection says though. Huh? Chalamet. Number 22, Overlord. Straight-faced camp delight about paratroopers fighting Nazi zombies. Gory, gutsy, and very tense in places. Lots of fun.
With Euron Greyjoy as the bad guy.
Fuck me, is that him?
That's him. That's him, my man.
That's amazing.
That's why you felt sick all the time.
That's why I wanted him to leave the whole time.
21. Can you ever forgive me?
No.
Melissa McCarthy and Richard E. Grant, one of the best double acts of the year. A bit heisty, funny and full of wintry type characters. Career best for McCarthy and, dare I say it, Grant.
Absolutely.
I do dare.
Except with an eye. Number 21.
No. Disagree.
Let's fight. Thanos' plan doesn't make sense, and Richard E. Grant's best in with an eye. I'm creating a list. It's one of those like American amendments situations where if one thing passes, they all pass.
Makes sense to a sociopath. Richard E. Grant, fuck you.
Also, the dynamic was better in Homecoming. Okay, 21. Black Klansman.
I disagree about Black Panther.
Fine. I'm gonna fucking kill you.
And you kept kicking your shoes into the wall when we lived together, Paul.
You kept leaving them in the middle of the fucking hall.
Yeah, but you didn't wash up all the time, so...
I used like one dish a year. All of my stuff is cooked in the thing that you eat it out of and then throw it away in.
You left your tissues on the table. I'm cutting all of this.
I'm putting it back in. Fuck you. And the tissues and putting them right up the table. What's wrong with tissues on the table? Anyway.
Used ones.
Oh, the used ones. Jesus Christ, did I? Yeah, I probably did. I do it now. Anyway, that's what white problems look like. Here's Black Klansman. The most powerful climax to a film I've seen in years. This is an embittered but surprisingly funny tale of racism and standing up to stupidity and intolerance. Just don't expect a happy ending, because we haven't earned one yet.
Number 20, Black Klansman.
My number 20, The Miseducation of Cameron Post. A story about a young girl going to a gay conversion therapy center. Promises to be very dry, but this is a really funny and very sweet story made all the more effective by a great performance from Chloe Grace Moretz and fantastic direction. It's also hard-hitting, but there is definitely a very relatable, lovely human at the end of that fist.
19, Tully. Heartfelt, incredibly well captured and human story about growing up and keeping on keeping on.
Number 19, Burning. Great year for taut thrillers. This one is a brilliantly creepy slow burner, as it's never really clear if there is actually a threat to be tense about or not. Young man falls in love with girl goes on holiday, comes back with a charming stranger. Is it just jealousy, or is there something more sinister going on? Immaculately paced, brilliantly acted, gripping throughout.
18, Under the Silver Lake, directed by David Robert Mitchell of It Follows. I genuinely didn't know whether I loved or hated this for the first hour, and that's its strength. It defies definition, and all you have to do is Google the movie to read a whole bunch of reviews knee-jerking their way to judgment, which should give you a pretty good idea of the wonders contained within. It's unique.
It is unique. Speaking of unique, number 18, Under the Silver Lake. Andrew Garfield tries to find a missing girl he briefly met once in this labyrinthine maze of a film constructed from the mythology of Los Angeles. It's funny, shocking, and will definitely have you talking afterwards.
Disagree. You left the lights on.
I still have Anusol in like every room of this house.
That's my calling card.
I've been robbed.
Pals is real.
Anusol.
Listeners at home, Pals is a real and ever-present threat to our society. And
guys, when he says piles, he means blacks. Gotta stop him.
That's why I live in Australia.
He's trying to do Thanos' plan. Gotta stop him.
Basically, Australia now is like the UK population from the 1970s, and I got to tell you, mate, it works. People are so nice.
Give it 40.
A cool 40 of Goodman. Speaking of, Number 17, The Night Comes For Us. Indonesian action smash-a-thon whose slightly labyrinthine plot is more than made up for by the best action of the year. Apart from the action film that I've placed above this. Flawless choreography bringing to mind the raid, unrelentingly violent and gruesome, pure, unadulterated joy.
Number 17, Bad Times at El Royale. A very definitely Tarantino-indebted, character-driven, I can't say the word thriller again. It's about a small group of strangers who meet up at an old hotel. Each has a story, each has a reason to be distrustful of the others. It's beautifully contained, very suspenseful, and brilliantly directed.
Number 16, Suspiria, the Argento version, though.
No!
Look, I know, I got you. You twat.
You
I
bitch.
burped at the same time as saying twat. It's great.
Make it worse.
You're the loser here. It's all been said already, but it's gorgeous, dramatic, and visceral. Hard to believe it came from the same mind as Call Me By Your Name and A Bigger Splash, but also entirely easy to believe that as well. Gorgeous and haunting. Shut up, everyone who didn't like it.
Just get out. Get in this box I made you. It says twats on it. Number 16, A Simple Favor. Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively are amazing as two mums with very different styles of mum. Lively's character goes missing. Kendrick tries to find her. It's funny, stylish, genuinely beguiling, and really sweet as well.
15, Apostle. What a paradise this movie is. Indonesian director Gareth Evans brings us a film where young ex-soldier Dan Stevens travels to an island to rescue his sister from well-meaning lunatic Michael Sheen. Pays heavy homage to the Wicker Man with the grisly bone-crunching misery Evans brought to the raid.
Yeah.
Gripping horror.
Interesting. Number 15, Mission Impossible Fallout. Best action movie of the year. Fuck everyone and everything. Incredible set pieces, comes close to being purely cinematic in its use of dialogue-free action, though not as close as Ghost Protocol. Also, Henry Cavill is fantastic in it. It was well worth ruining Justice League for it.
Many things are well worth ruining Justice League for. Number 14, Sorry to Bother You. Totally original and missing a few Oscars last time I checked. Original and scathing, social commentary, hilarious. Add David Cross to all of that and you've got yourself a film just shy of my top 10.
Number 14, Isle of Dogs. Incredible attention to detail, gorgeous animation, really funny, very sweet. A great story of a boy looking for his lost dog with some help along the way. It's got an incredible cast as well.
My number 13 is your number 1, so I'll just leave it because we're close.
Ooh, okay. My number 13 is Can You Ever Forgive Me? Every film from this point should be in my top 10.
Yeah.
And it's a perversion of the way numbers work that they're not. A failing writer takes up forgery with the help of her only friend, a crook. Melissa McCartney and Richard E. Grant are at the height of their abilities here, so I guess I'm wrong too. And the story is a very human one of loneliness and desperation, but it's really funny. Funny and sad.
So, number 12, Mission Impossible Fallout. Action, action, action. It's perhaps my favourite instalment. Disagree. The perfect combination of thrilling action and emotional beats. Literally on the edge of my seat throughout. You know Hunt's going to make it, but you can't believe he does. It's so tense. It's great.
Number 12, Roma. Gorgeously filmed story of ordinary lives in an extraordinary time and place. Makes thrilling set pieces out of a fire in the country, a race down the street, a man trying to park his car, and of course, a brave woman retrieving two scared children from the sea. It's fucking spectacular.
My number 11 is If Beale Street Could Talk. We've been there, talk that. Amazing.
Been there, street that. Number 11, Wild Rose. A young mother tries to pursue her dreams of being a country singer without abandoning her kids. It's not as easy as it looks. It's a stunning story of parental responsibility versus personal aspiration. So well acted, really exquisitely written, and the scene where Julie Walters gives Jessie Buckley the money she needs to get to Nashville had me crying both times I've seen it. They're both really amazing in this. Christ, what could be better than all of that? Paul,
well,
what do you think is better than all of that?
Would you believe it's the film that I've talked about 87 times in the last 6 months on the podcast? I just want to say well done to Nicolas Cage for making it into my top 10 list twice, for being in the top 30 at least 3 times, and for Panos Cosmatos for making the film to most comprehensively blow my mind this year. That's right, it's Mandy.
Under the crimson primordial sky, the wretched warlock reached into the dark embrace. His fist closed around the serpent's eye. Strange and eternal.
I need you to get me that girl I saw. You know what to do.
Following the kidnap of Mandy by cultists, led by Linus Roche, and Nick Cage's awesome bloody revenge, this film takes place somewhere between waking and dreaming. Now, the first time I saw this, I immediately went away and read about it. I had to know what was going on. It was so shrouded in mystery. you're aware of the fact that you're witnessing something sublime, and if you read enough, you might just unlock something that transcends regular movie viewing. Cosmatos gets staggering performances out of Cage, Andrea Riseborough, who plays Mandy, and Linus Roche. It's so layered and there's so much to unpack that reducing any part of this to weird or kooky or cage rage is frankly not to understand what's at stake here and what Cosmatos is trying to achieve. What Cosmatos is achieving. It flits from avant-garde to grindhouse like me with 20 Chrome tabs open. It revels in its gore and grindhouse elements and wades through its darker moments like some poor Scottish man being led into an oily void by Scarlett Johansson. Cosmatos wrote it after the death of his parents, incorporating Jungian psychology, the collective unconscious, the part of the unconscious that consisted of ideas and memories that came from ancestors to describe what essentially is a mind at war with itself. That's what this movie is. When in the context of a Jungian struggle for identity, it becomes a justifiably, viscerally satisfying revenge flick. These are archetypes of the mind, and that's what makes these performances. Even in their most extreme moments, they're capturing something true about the mind. It has its Nick Cage fuck yeah moments, but testament to Mandy's brilliance is how unbridled and aggressive the film is throughout, in so many shades. And then you realise you haven't even seen Nick Cage for 20 minutes. You have this crazy hallucinatory induction scene where Linus Roche has captured Mandy from the help of his creepy, deeply loyal disciples, one of whom is Ned Dennehy, who was in Tyrannosaur. A lot of the film, is bathed in this violent red light. It's very transporting and it's very unsettling and disorienting at times. Nick Cage is integral to the understanding of this movie, I think. I don't think anyone else could have done it better, to play a sort of a warring part of somebody's mind, a grieving person's mind. There is, of course, a scene of him in his pants drinking so much vodka that his throat hurts and screaming, but it's apt and it's true because young. I can't wait to see what Cosmatos comes up with next. I hope it doesn't get disqualified from the Oscars when Netflix movies are eligible, and I should really get around to watching Beyond the Black Rainbow again without falling asleep. Again.
Yeah, it's a really special film, and I'm looking forward to watching it again because it reminds me a bit of Kill List. It has that kind of urban aesthetic to it, and I'm looking forward to sort of revisiting and plumbing the depths.
It's one of those films that, again, because of not having the Oscar recognition, it just seems to have slipped under a lot of people's radars. I'm constantly trying to get people to watch it. I am vaguely aware that the last person I recommended watch it hasn't spoken to me in about 2 weeks, but
or been seen since.
True, yeah. I didn't say actually that the Johan Johansson soundtrack is a monolith. It's dark and it's moody and it's violent and gory in its own way. And again, it's another reason that it was sad that it was disqualified from the Oscars for not completing its run in LA whilst also streaming on demand. It seems a little bit unfair, bearing in mind what is eligible for Oscars now. And we had a bit of a campaign because it was Johansson's last or one of his last scores, and it is particularly good, and it would have been nice to have some recognition posthumously, but what can you do? My favourite moment is when Nick Cage, just before defeating the demons summoned by the Horn of Abraxas, which is something that features heavily in Jung's collective consciousness, when he defeats them and he decides to take a sip of a metallic-looking substance that seems to be powering them, and he comes to transcend what it means to be human and to be a single identity. And the film conveys exactly what that means. It's incredible. If you haven't seen it, please watch it.
Definitely.
Are you awake?
Yeah, baby. What is it?
You were having a bad dream.
Uh-huh.
How's it about?
I can't remember.
Okay, my favourite is The Favourite, film of mine from last year, which is The Favourite, the film.
You have become close to Abigail.
She is a viper. You're jealous.
You must send Abigail away.
I do not want to.
Let's shoot something. Sometimes it is hard to remember whether you have loaded the pellet or not.
I must take control of my circumstance.
Row! I'm on my side. Always.
Favour is a breeze that shifts direction all the time. Then, in an instant, you're back sleeping with a bunch of scabrous whores.
As it turns out, I am capable of much unpleasantness. I could not just stand by and let you destroy me.
You are enjoying all of this, aren't you?
Oh, it is fun to be queen sometimes.
The Favourite is a stately, grandiose epic told almost entirely with just 3 characters. Elizabeth... who the fuck is Elizabeth?
Queen Elizabeth.
Queen Elizabeth, played by Elizabeth Elizabethman. Olivia Colman is Queen Anne. Rachel Weisz is her favourite subject, Sarah Churchill, who is quite brazenly ruling the kingdom in Anne's stead, much to the frustration of Nicholas Holt's Robert Harley. Into this arrangement comes Emma Stone's Abigail Hill, a former lady who has fallen on hard times, as Abigail ingratiates herself to the Queen, with the Queen? Into the Queen. Sarah becomes jealous, and an all-out fight for the Queen's affections and power begins. So there's this fabulous plot in which everyone is scheming against everyone else with lots of twists and turns and, upper hands and lower hands and backhands and all the rest, and vicious little moments of cruelty and triumph and defeat and victory, and all quite camp and complemented by the fabulous dialogue. Lanthimos and his writing partner, Ephemus Philippou, or Philippou, perhaps?
Pow!
Whatever sounds more Greek, did not write this one. So everyone talks like real, awake people this time. Deborah Davis and Tony McNamara do an excellent job of realizing these characters and balancing authenticity against eccentricity and excellentricity and electricity. Lanthimos is one of the most interesting directors working, taking cues from Kubrick, particularly the cues brick, particularly in the dynamic lighting of this film, which is very Barry Lyndon, but also his adventurous use of dissolves and juxtaposition. There's one moment where we hear the next scene some 30 seconds before the conclusion of the scene that motivates it. It lends this great gravitas and significance to everything that's happening. And the music is also great. You've got this use of Baroque and classical music like Bach, Handel, Vivaldi, all used in ways in which I'm pretty sure are iconic. Like, I'm not going to be able to hear that Vivaldi piece without thinking about the favourite from now on. But then there's odd little modernist beats, care of Luke Ferrari and Anna Meredith, that are all very surreal and disturbing, and again, quite Kubrickian. There's something very Ligeti about them. That's all that out of the way. Now, let's talk about Olivia Colman, Emma Stone, and Rachel Weisz. They make this movie. They are perfect, expressive, complicated, relatable, despicable, and very funny. Olivia Colman is amazing. She's seemingly childish and unpredictable, but is visibly drowning beneath the weight of this horrible tragedy that has defined her life. She really is. And Stone is scrappy, desperate, and sassy. You want her to escape the misery of her station and her circumstance, and feel genuinely nervous when she decides to take bold risks to try and gain favour with the Queen, and, goes out of line and speaks out of turn in a desperate attempt to try and get herself noticed, and it's really gut-churning. She gradually learns to be quite unpleasant, and Rachel Weisz is really authoritative. She's, I think, the most beguiling of the three. It's unclear what her motives are, how deep her affections actually go, but she plays it with such wonderful malice. The bitchy moments where she's sort of digging into Emma Stone's characters are just, delightful.
I'm scared of Rachel Weisz in this film.
I'm scared of Rachel Weisz in general. She tends to be quite scary. She's quite scary in Disobedience as well, I think. She'll have any of your wives. My favourite scene, I love the dance.
Oh, yeah.
I really do, but it's just a little slice of silliness to really lighten the mood.
Lovely bit of anachronism.
There's some anachronistic moments in the dialogue as well, a little bit when Nicholas Hoult is talking about the faults in the character of Mulberry, and he says something followed by, so there's that.
Yeah.
Which, I fucking love Nicholas Hoult. He's so funny in this. But it's the ending that really fucking stayed with me and made this, I think, my favourite film of the year. The final 5 minutes of the film are without dialogue. And it's this really upsetting, repetitive action. A kind of simulated act of fellatio in which one character is revealed to have actually not escaped her fate after all, and another to be far lonelier than she was at the start of the film, maybe having lost the only real relationship in her life. It all plays out to this really morose but embittered Schubert sonata, which is just a lonely kind of but pressing piano with this frightening fluttering sound that gradually grows in intensity as the rabbits take over the frame.
Yeah.
Each one representing a dead child. Lanthimos uses the overlaid images to turn this image into a frozen tableau in which no progress can be made now. The hands have all been played, and the Queen has chosen her favourite.
It's one of the most gorgeously shot films of the year. It's wonderfully anachronistic at times, but it's a really interesting commentary on the artistic license of historical movies. Really wonderfully performed by everybody. Yeah, it's thoroughly original.
It simultaneously sort of hits upon all the beats you'd expect from a period film, whilst also just going completely in a new direction. It's unpredictable and just such a delight. It's so tightly paced. Every scene that starts is just like, yes, I love this. I love this moment. Superb.
My dear friend, how good to see you've returned from hell.
I'm sure you shall pass through it one day.
That's our favourite movies of the year. Let's go to the OG team.
Yeah, let's look at, come on Paul, the OG team.
Schubert team.
Trademark.
Trademark Schubert.
Matthew Whitaker of Cinema Bushido, Screen Mayhem, he was on the podcast. Check it out. He said, upgrade by a far mark. I had a rough year, but that scene when our protagonist flips the dude's shotgun arm into his own face was poetry.
Oh, lovely.
I agree.
I'm so glad that stirred him.
Look, something's got to.
Great choice, boss. No, that's a really good choice. Upgrade was fantastic, and that moment is really gleeful.
Katie at Katie Maiden says, let's all state the obvious favourite, ... It's very good.
We all love that favourite. It's self-titled. For convenience. Yorgos Lanthimos is trying to save you time.
He's very economical.
His next film is called your third favourite film of the year. Oh.
It's very honest.
Thanks, Yorgie.
Aussie Nerds said, favourite film, Won't You Be My Neighbour? Favourite character, Santa Claus in the Christmas Chronicles, and favourite scene, decapitation in Hereditary. What a spread.
Yeah. What a varied cinematic chocolate box you've enjoyed this year.
It's a real Forrest Gump affair.
Mama always said life was like a box of chocolates. This one's where a young girl gets her head smashed off.
Beautiful. Pods in the Key of Springfield said, Roma, I am all in on Roma. Also, Hereditary, Mission Impossible, Fallout, Shoplifters, First Reformed, Suspiria, and many others.
Good stuff, most of which have been represented in our list.
Yeah, nicely done. We like you, Pods in the Key of Springfield. And your breath is as fresh as a... What's the fucking Kissinger line?
Oh, as a spring ham?
Spring ham. Not even Simpsons. Felt right.
Yeah, it's the Simpsons where he drops his glasses in the toilet.
Yeah.
So he gets a lot of respect as Kissinger in that.
I can't tell them I dropped them in the toilet.
Maybe just walk away from the door without even closing it. Oh, that's great.
Nell, my lovely Nell, she said, I haven't decided on a single entry, so I give to you a hybrid, the finest film of the year. The favourite, Shoplifters, Roma, Into the Spider-Verse, and Leave No Trace. Parenthesis, don't worry, he won't get far on foot. Close parenthesis. That's a great film.
Why parenthesis?
I think it's like an emo song. You know, it has the title and then it have a sentence parenthesized.
Oh, beautiful. It's like Coheed and Cambria.
Love that shit. Jen Blundell.
I was just about to ask, did Jen submit this year?
She did. She said, I actually saw 11 films released in 2018. I'm hoping they all count under whatever Eldritch calendar you two use. In order of preference, A Star is Born, The Favourite, Black Panther, Green Book, Deadpool 2, Le Grand Bain, Sink or Swim, parenthesis, Long Day's Journey into Night, Mission Impossible Fallout, Ocean's 8, Samuni Road, a documentary, does this count? Yes.
No.
And Avengers Infinity War.
Also a documentary.
Richard Grant's career best.
He plays Black Widow.
I think the first few speak for themselves. Infinity War is at the bottom because I'm a loser who realised she wasn't actually that happy with it, but I watched it on a plane, so maybe it would be better on a rewatch. Samuni Road combines moving interviews with beautiful hand-drawn animation. Le Grand Bain was funny and charming.
Yeah, it was.
Long Day's Journey into the Night is perhaps the one that has stuck with me the most. The hour-long dream sequence that comprises the second half is incredible. There are so many other 2018 films I wanted to see but haven't gotten around to, so I'm pretty certain this list will change dramatically with time. Maybe after listening to your favourite podcast, list their top 30 moves of 2018.
Yeah, maybe.
As for my favourite OG TEPs of the year,
Ooh!
I particularly loved Breaking Dawn, the Sandler retrospective, the Equilibrium Defense, parenthesis, I love that film forever, Sex and the City 2, The Pebble and the Penguin, Manos, and the film score ep if we're working on an Oscars year.
Yeah, lovely.
Also Film Tool Combat, because recording that was hysterical.
Oh.
Remember that?
Remember that? That was a good laugh.
Anxiety nightmare.
Please like us. Both, equally.
One of us has to win, but can't we all win?
Can't we? No. Okay.
Mark Reed says, I can't think of a single film from 2018 that really stood out to me. I have fun watching Halloween, Avengers, Black Panther, Ready Player One, and Hereditary, but nothing stands out as amazing.
Well, give Mandy and The Favourite a go and see if either of those rock your world. Hopefully they will.
There's still hope. Thanks for the recent subscribe, and great to have you on board. New member of the OG team.
OG team, you guy?
Christopher Bond of Babybeard fame says Spider-Verse, Mandy, Star is Born, and Black Panther. Wow. Nice one. What a spread. Ellen Graham, Babybearder, said Suspiria and Hereditary were two prestige horror films that I fucking loved. They both went balls to the wall in making bold aesthetic choices, and we all know my love for Tilda Swinton. The strange relationship Suspiria has with female sexuality and power is something I'm still unpacking. Intentional or not, having an all-female cast and then two men at the creative helm makes it slightly disconnected from a female point of view and makes that sexuality something alien and frightening. Hereditary, you could cut the tension with a knife, and I left legitimately feeling sick to my stomach. It also straddles that line between horror and camp, where total realism can be somewhat off-putting. That fucking face on your face line is so true that it seems uncanny. A twisted melodrama of real family dysfunction.
Yeah.
I Also, many thanks to A Quiet Place for putting well-crafted, if simple horror films as Hollywood blockbusters. Into the Spider-Verse, what can I fucking say?
Yeah.
Use the medium in such a new way, so much heart, and meant so much for representation. A+.
Good stuff.
The A+, I'm sure, was for us.
There's really good representation in our list this year, I think. A lot of really great sort of black stories being brought to the screen in bigger ways than perhaps would have been possible lately, which I think is really exciting.
Yeah.
I have been
Agreed.
fairly quiet on Hereditary, which some may have noticed has been missing from my top 30, for a horror guy. I had such high hopes for Hereditary, and I was really excited about it based on the trailers. And I feel like it's 3/4 of a really great film, but towards the end it did just lose me a little. And I've heard people be very sort of self-acknowledging about how silly it gets, and that's fair enough. My problem isn't necessarily the silliness of it, it's just that it over-explains itself a little too much.
Yes.
And it changes focus from being about a family and the demons that haunt it, and becomes instead about the semantics and the technicalities of this cult.
Yeah.
And it just kind of loses it a bit for me at that stage.
I found myself really sensitive to poor third acts this year.
Yeah.
It really seems to deflate the experience for me, and I was really enjoying Hereditary, and I just found it losing its way a little bit.
It's up until that seance, I think, for me. Everything up until there is so frightening. It is one of the best horror movies of the last few years, but it just didn't stick that landing for me. But I am very excited to see that director's next feature, which already has a trailer out.
Oh, great.
And looks a lot of fun.
The horror and comedy overlap really well for me. I really enjoyed the really bizarre moments, and I was laughing because I was shocked. I just couldn't tell what was going on and what line they were supposed to be treading. Yeah. So it really had a lot going for it. It was a really, really good effort.
Yeah, I think so.
Thanks so much, OGT.
Thanks, OGT.
See you next year.
Don't mess with us. Whoop, whoop.
I've blocked them all now.
Good. There's one other list before we move off of personal preference, and that is the list of a little paper called Cahiers du Cinema, a French publication that is probably best known for giving the world various incredible film directors. There's a lot of the French New Wave came out of Cahiers du Cinema. Did Agnes Varda work there? I wonder. Anyway, they do their top 10 films of the year every year. And this year I was looking through and there were some usual suspects in there, as you'd suspect. But then I noticed The House That Jack Built.
Oh.
The Lars von Trier serial killer movie. And that's when I noticed they tend to be quite loyal to the directors that they've chosen once. It seems to be, if you get on Cahiers du Cinema's list once, you're kind of there forever, which is also why The Neon Demon was on the list in 2016, top 10 films of the year.
Okay.
And why Twixt appeared on their 2012 list.
I see.
Yes.
So, giving it a French name does not actually guarantee quality.
Is Twixt French for not a good thing?
Cahiers du Cinema.
Oh, right, yeah. Those bloody pretentious French folk gave their own paper a French name.
I know.
It's unbelievable.
They watch their own French films with subtitles.
Oh, fuck. And also they named Twin Peaks The Return as the best film of 2017, so I don't know what the fuck they're doing. We are now going to briefly discuss the highest grossing films of the year and see if we think it's been a good year in terms of the public. Let's see if they got it right.
I love this bit.
I presume Mandy, The Favourite, all going to be in the top 10.
Top 3.
It's going to be nothing but quality. Number 10, Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald.
Nothing but quality.
Watch this space. We'll have more to say on that in a couple of weeks. Number 9, Deadpool 2. Good call.
Yeah. Very cool.
Number 8, Mission Impossible Fallout.
Yeah.
Good stuff. I think we're in for a winner here. Number 7, Venom. Watch this space. Number 6, Bohemian Rhapsody.
I enjoyed it.
I've not seen it.
It was a very watchable, enjoyable film, and Rami Malek is great. I especially love him because of his appearance in The Pacific, and how when you watch Band of Brothers, it stars everyone. And you watch The Pacific, and it's just full of people who are yet to make their mark, and Rami Malek is the main one who's come from that. And I feel like with Olivia Colman, I've been with them for so long that their successes feel partly mine.
I didn't mention that. I'm so happy that Olivia Colman has a fucking Oscar now. That's mind-blowing.
Oh, God, yeah, we didn't talk about that at all.
Yeah.
Olivia Colman from Peep Show.
The endearing sort of smiley one from that Michelin Web look.
Green Wing.
Yeah.
And that Michelin Web look.
Has a fucking Oscar. God bless her.
What
That's
a career.
So
I'm
great.
so thrilled.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for her.
God bless you, Yorgos Lanthimos, for giving her those opportunities. Number 5, Aquaman. Yeah, it's good fun.
I really enjoyed it.
The only thing I have against it is that I don't know why, I just kind of want the DC EU to continue on the trajectory that it's established. It's not a good thing to want, I should be glad. I'm glad it's found a direction, which is to rip off Marvel completely. You know what, that's it. I'm just frustrated that they didn't manage to figure out their own direction.
I know.
Ah well.
It is what it is.
Number 4, more high-flying capers with a problematic message, it's Incredibles 2. Thanks, Brad Bird. Why are you so angry with my generation? What have we done?
I was neither over or underwhelmed. I was mildly whelmed by the film.
Number 3, Jurassic Fallen Kingdom. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, the fucking weirdest blockbuster in years.
I have not seen it, and I have no idea what you're referring to.
How about the fact that... Have you seen the trailer?
Nope.
Okay. How about if I told you that the first 20 minutes of this happens on Jurassic Park Island, and then the rest of the film is set inside of a gothic mansion in somewhere in America, where the dinosaurs are stalking about?
I wouldn't believe you, you fucking lunatic.
I'm a Fanis-style maniac. None of those words were pronounced correctly. Okay, number 2. I don't know what happened there. Fanis-style, I'm trying out a new accent.
It's working.
Good, thanks. Number 2, Black Panther. Yes, good stuff.
Not particularly overwhelmed. I thought it was fine. I didn't quite get the hype.
I really loved it. It really hit me. Well, number 1,
cool.
Infinity War.
Yeah. Can't all be Mandy, but I'm happy with that.
Okay.
It's to be expected. Be interesting to see what happens between Endgame and The Rise of Skywalker this year.
That will
in
be
terms of box office.
All right, we're pretty much done for film. Couple of other stray observances. Television, been really good this year. We've had The Haunting of Hill House, a television show I can't seem to fucking be able to convince anyone to watch because everybody's gone out and said, oh, it's the scariest thing ever. And yes, it's spooky, but I didn't expect it to have such good characters.
Yeah.
It's the Oculus guy, so of course it's well written and has these brilliant kids in it, and I love the show. Please check it out. It's great.
It's all the obstacles of trying to bring a horror success to a wider audience.
Yeah, just don't be scared of it. It's got the best jump scare ever made, but aside from that,
it's not scary.
It's not scary. Also great television. Glow season 2 was brilliant,
amazing,
really great. And Better Call Saul
so good.
is quietly being the best thing ever without too many people noticing it. Brilliant, slow burn thriller. You have any good telly for the year?
To be honest, I've been catching up on a lot of Doctor Who, so I'm still in the past with that. I haven't quite gotten to Jodie Whittaker, so I'm looking forward to getting my teeth stuck into that contentious banana.
Come on, Moffat.
We saw Glow. Actually, it's not Moffat who's writing the new ones, I don't think, so could be good or bad, who knows. We crammed both seasons of Glow into 2018, and just awesome, one of the best things on TV.
We got some time to play some video games.
Yes, we did.
My favourite game of the year is somewhere between Red Dead Redemption 2 and God of War. God of War for its just fantastic father-son dynamic, and Red Dead Redemption 2 for its really fun gameplay and best characters ever, including Arthur Morgan, one of my favourite game protagonists ever, and the song from that game, That's the Way It Is currently my shortcut to being in tears, so that's fun.
That's the way it is. That's the way it is.
That's just the way it is. Things won't ever be the same.
No, it goes, it's like that, and that's the way it is. That's how it goes.
Nice. Some good references there. Some good 90s references there from the OGT boys. God of War was wonderful. It was an amazing relationship between father and son. My game of the year was Subnautica, which was recommended to me by Phil from the Baby Beard crew, which is their full name. It's a survival game. You crash land on an alien planet and you have to find your way off of it, basically. Really wonderful game mechanics, really great story progression, and just a fully realised world that I didn't ever want to leave. But had to because, I've got to eat at the very least.
Do you?
Just well, never tried it, to be honest, so can't knock it just yet. Exploring these oceans and going kilometres below the surface of the water, it's truly terrifying. It really speaks to the existential terror centres of the brain.
All right, well, I think that's just about going to do it for our 2018 in review. So,
gosh,
yeah.
Well done, us.
Congrats, everyone, for seeing some really good movies and sharing them here. And if anything, I really hope that maybe you've just got at least one thing that you think, yeah, give that a go. Yeah, why not?
Let us know what it is.
What was it?
You can tweet that at OGTpod, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. You can send us an email at gmail at ogtpod@gmail.com. Or, you could leave that successful recommendation in the form of a 5-star review on iTunes, because we love that. We eat stars. We're like Mario, who's forgotten what he does and just started eating stars. And
we're like horrible Mario.
Horrible, twisted, unemployed Mario dad, who's only got stars left from the glory days when he only rolled around with Dr. Dre. Thanks everyone for the last year. It's been so great to hear from everybody. We've had some amazing emails and reviews and some really wonderful tweets of praise that have gotten me through some tricky Wednesday lunchtimes. It's been awesome. Thanks everyone, and we will see you for the following 12 months till next April, end of 2019.
Fuck yeah. Pretty soon we're going to be covering some of those less appreciated films of 2019, and we're going to see if we can find all the good things about them. And maybe, just maybe, we're going to have to update our top 30s. We'll like them so much.
Wednesdays, eh?
Fucking hate them. I'm Paul Salt.
I'm Paul Goodman.
Remember, one good thing about 2018 was all those movies that came out that we talked about.
Which ones?
The favourite, First Reformed, Leave No Trace, Suspiria, Sorry to Bother You, Black Panther, Isle of Dogs, A Quiet Place, Tully, Revenge, American Animals, Mission Impossible Fallout, Miseducation of Cameron Post, Black Klansman, Simple Favor, Old Man and the Gun, Can You Ever Forgive Me, Overlord Roma, Under the Silver Lake, Under the Spider-Verse, Vice, Asako 1 and 2, Ballad of Buster Scruggs, Burning, If Bill Street Could Talk, Happy New Year, Colin Bursted, Climax, The Endless, Wild Rose, and whatever you talked about.
Wait, what was that?
Oh, I said the favourite, First Reformed, Leave...